The US president's son, Hunter Biden, has pleaded guilty to 9 federal tax charges after initially denying the allegations and now faces the prospect of jail time. He made this surprise move as his trial was getting underway. North America correspondent Carrington Clark joins us now from Washington, D.C. Carrington, this move from Hunter Biden comes as a bit of a shock.
Yeah, it was another dramatic twist in a legal process that has now been years in the making. Hunter Biden was due to stand trial starting today in California over these tax charges. And the day started with reports that he was going to enter a no contest plea, effectively pleading guilty but not actually admitting that he was responsible for these particular tax evasion charges. That was then rejected soundly by the Federal Department of Justice, and then he just pled guilty to these particular charges, which was done without an agreement with the prosecution. Usually what you see is a deal being struck between the defendant and the prosecution, which means they get a more lenient sentence for pleading guilty. That does not appear to be the case here. And instead, Hunter Biden is suggesting that he is doing this because he doesn't want to put his family through another potentially tricky legal trial after his previous experience in Delaware, where he was found guilty in regards to firearm offences. And this really all stems back to a period in Hunter Biden's life, which is well documented, where he was fighting his own addiction issues. The charges that he has pled guilty to involve not paying taxes that he had an obligation to pay from the years 2016 to 2019 that amount to more than $2 million in Australian terms. So he has now pled guilty. It does mean that he faces the potential of up to 17 years in prison. Though as a first-time offender for these particular charges, that is unlikely, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. Now, his lawyer spoke on his behalf and said that although this is a guilty plea, it's mainly done because of his sympathy towards his family situation and that he wants to draw a line under it, but also didn't rule out there being appeals after this guilty plea.
Hunter decided to enter his plea to protect those he loves from unnecessary hurt and cruel humiliation. This plea prevents that kind of show trial that would have not provided all the facts or served any real point in justice. He will now move on with us to the sentencing phase, while keeping open the options to raise the many clear issues with this case on appeal.
So perhaps this isn't a complete end to this particular matter. Now, he will be sentenced on December the 16th. This particular trial didn't have the political currency that it had previously when his father, President Joe Biden, was still running for re-election. Now his father will be finishing his term when whoever out of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris wins the next presidential election and takes over in January. But it does mean that we avoid a situation where you have this potentially messy trial occurring during a presidential race. That clears the way. It'll clear the way both for Joe Biden and for Kamala Harris, who obviously would rather there be less embarrassing news coming out on the Democratic side. But it also does raise the question once again of whether or not President Joe Biden will be willing to pardon his son as he's entitled to do as the president. Now, he has previously ruled that out, but circumstances have now changed. He isn't running for re-election, so it appears that it might be a live question again, although today the press secretary suggested the answer is still no, at least at this stage.
Carrington Clark reporting from Washington.